Let me first ask you what your take is on this, that the U.S., not only that they slapped the tariffs on, I think you could have seen that coming a mile away, but that they did it on grounds of national security. How does that make any sense?
Of course, good morning. It doesn't make any sense to us. Of course, the European Union is an important ally to the US, partners within the NATO, but also we are, of course, an economic partner. Historically, we have strong ties. So we very much regret, of course, this decision taken by President Trump.
Did you see the EU working at all to appease the Trump administration? I mean, it seems like there were a number of things the European Union and Germany especially could have done. For example, buying more LNG from the U.S. instead of supporting a pipeline from Vladimir Putin out of Russia, or slashing tariffs on U.S. car imports from the 10% level where they are now. Did you see any of that happening in the background?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, the Commission did a great effort in order to come into a discussion with the US. But of course, a discussion needs to take place on grounds of a partnership and not putting the pistol on the other one's breast.
Well, I can understand that, but the only other way that we currently have to deal with disputes is going to the WTO, and you can plan on spending a decade there if you want to get something changed. So isn't this the way these negotiations kind of have to work now if you want to do anything efficiently or expediently?
No, of course, the European Union has to go to the WTO now, but at the same time, the negotiations or the discussions need to continue to find solutions, because we are still talking about the root cause of this situation, global steel excess capacity driven in particular by Chinese overproduction. And that is the root cause, and we need to continue to discuss this with the US to come to a solution as soon as possible, and then hopefully the measures can be lifted.
What are the solutions that you see then to the global overcapacity? I mean, how do you deal with this without dragging it out over 10 years? How do you get something done sooner than later?
That's a difficult one. Of course, that is actually one of the criticisms of the US, which we, the European steel industry, of course, share, that the processes in order to react against unfair trade take much too long. Countries like China, they have to remove subsidizing its domestic industry, supporting exports of its products, and that has to get now much quicker than in the past or foreseen in the Global Forum on Steel Access Capacity. But that Global Forum has a good basis. A number of principles have been adopted, and these need to be implemented now. They need to be monitored. But of course, countries like China need to agree to monitor these principles. And then we would come a step forward. Also for the WTO, maybe there's some scope to improve the rules of the WTO in the future so that the reactiveness is much quicker than it is today.
What do you expect, Axel, the effect of these tariffs now to be on the companies that you represent? How do you see the European steel industry affected by this?
Of course, the US is a very important export market for the European steel industry. We export around about 5 million tons of steel per year. So we are talking about a value of almost 6 billion euros. And that is, of course, a very difficult situation. We expect that at least 50% of these volumes, 5 million tons, will have to find new markets, or we have to reduce partially the production in the European Union in order to match now the constraints which we have. 25% tariff is quite high, so we will not be able to fully absorb these tariffs. We are of course hoping that the option to exempt steel steel products from the tariffs will be taken very soon. We need, of course, the US consuming industry for that. There are thousands of companies in the US which are dependent on European steel, high quality steel, and those consumers now hopefully will ask for exemptions for the steel products they need.